Hello everyone, it's Deb again. So I thought I would make a video and show you guys how I make my solay, which I use when I'm balancing my electrolytes. And a solay, which is spelled S-O-L-E, it's just a fully saturated saltwater solution. And it's basically exactly how it sounds. You take water and salt and you make a solution so strong that the salt will no longer dissolve in the water. Okay, so if you get a very large amount of salt with just that much water, the salt will start to dissolve as much as it can, and when it can no longer dissolve anymore, the salt will just sit there at the bottom. And see, these are old jars that I've got, and I've just been collecting them or letting them sit here the way they were just so I could show you the different phases of the solay. And so I just start with a pint size jar, and I use the Himalayan pink salt, and this is the coarse grain, the really coarse stuff. And I do use distilled water. I try to use the purest water I can start with. And this is a very old bottle, and because what happens is you have more salt than you need, and so when you run out of water, you can add more water to it. And so that's what I've done here several times. And what you see here at the bottom, I don't know if you can tell or not, there you go, that is not salt. That is the sediment from the Himalayan pink salt, because Himalayan pink salt has a bunch of other minerals in it, and that is the sediment from it. There are no salt crystals in there. So this may not even be fully saturated, but I've still been using it, and you can tell it's almost gone. And so I'll still use this, but I wanted to keep this around so I can show it to you in this video. But there's just a little bit of water left, and it may or may not be fully saturated, but it's okay. I don't have to be like totally technical, because this is just me. But it's almost fully saturated. And this one is the one I had in the house for my son, and it's about half gone right now. It's gonna be hard to tell, maybe. No, it's not too hard to tell. You can see the difference, definitely. That's just the sediment right there. And then when you look at this one, you can still see little salt crystals in there. That dark stuff is the sediment, and the other stuff, that's still salt. So this is fully saturated. The water cannot get any saltier than it is right now. And I just find using a solay to balance my electrolytes, it's a lot easier than trying to just add salt to my water or whatever, because you can find recipes to make electrolyte drinks, like homemade electrolyte drinks, and they just have you use half a teaspoon of salt or whatever, and you dissolve it in the water. I don't really think that's I don't know, it's just not convenient for me, because if the water isn't warm enough, it may or may not dissolve. And so I just make a solay because it's just easier for me. And so I will go ahead and use the rest of this, and then when it gets down to there, I can go ahead and add more water to it and let that dissolve even further. And so those are just the different phases of it. That one's fully expired, so I'm going to use the rest of that water, and then I'm going to dump the sediment, and I'm going to clean this jar. I've used this same jar. You can see how it's got mineral deposits on it on the inside. So I've been using this for over a year, well over a year. And this was my son's. I just brought it out here so I could show you the different different phases. And so I just take, you know, probably about a quarter of the jar. I'm experimenting with a new light. Hopefully it makes the lighting a little bit better. It may make it worse. Sorry if that's the case. And I just eyeball it. And this is going to be too much, but again, as I'm using it and the water level goes down, I just add more water to it, and then eventually it'll get to the point where there's no salt left, and all you've got is the sediment down there. And if you're using a clean white salt, then you won't have any sediment like that. And so the only thing that you'll be able to see is if there's still some life left into it, then you will be able to see little tiny crystals of salt in the bottom. And again, you can find it in really coarse grain. I'm not sure if you can tell how coarse that is, but this is the stuff you put in grinders, or you could put it in baths and everything, because it's safe for that. Obviously, if it's safe to eat, then it's safe to put in a bath, a saltwater bath. Sorry, that made a squeaky. I could use reverse osmosis water, but even that is not as clean as distilled water. I just go to the top with it. Well, not all the way to the top. I go to the bottom here before you get to the ring part. And then I just let that sit. This is the 2-piece canning lid. I use either that or the white lids with the gasket on the inside, and just get it on there tight. And just a couple times a day, or maybe once a day for a few days, you just shake it like this, and it won't take long, and it'll just be cloudy pink like that. But then when everything settles down, it will look like this, where it's all clear. If I started shaking this right now, it would do that right there. And so I do not shake this before I put it in my little dropper bottles, because I don't necessarily want all of those minerals that are down in there. That's not really necessary to me. I'm really just going for the sodium chloride in this point. I mean, I do also get trace minerals and stuff, but a lot of that is iron, and so whatever. But that's what it looks like after it's all settled down. And then after you shake it a few times and do that like for a few days, then you can be sure that that's fully saturated, and you can go ahead and start using it. And what I do is I just use a turkey baster, an old turkey baster, and these are dropper bottles that have been used. I bought these. They're lion's mane extract. This is medicinal mushroom, and this is a Ganoderma formula from the same company. This is very old, and it probably seems really weird and really gross because the label's even falling off. So I'm gonna start using a new bottle, but I've used this for several years because there's nothing wrong with it. It's sterile on the inside, so I've never, this just started happening this year, and so I've just got to ditch this one. But you can see that the outside of the bottle, it like grows this salt precipitation. The salt literally precipitates out of the bottle, and it doesn't matter that the lid is on tight. It just really doesn't matter. It even happens to these jars. Let me show you this one. You can maybe kind of see. That light might actually be too bright for you to see it. See those white specks? That's the salt precipitating out. I think that's the word. I think I'm using that the right way. And so that's just a natural formation, and it's going to happen no matter what. It kind of depends on your ambient temperature and the weather, because it doesn't always do this. I haven't really tracked when it does it the worst, but it seems to do it a little bit more during the summer. I'm not sure why, but it always does it. It always does this. It's just that sometimes it's worse than others, and the only thing, I just flake it off. I'll show you here in a second. But these white lids, these are the canning lids that you can get for the canning jars, but they're not watertight, and so I buy these little silicone rings that go on the inside, because if I didn't have that little ring in there and I went to shake it, it would start leaking out. So it's actually, you know, these are kind of better to use if you have these white jar, or the white lids without the rings. I wouldn't use them. I would go ahead and use the two-piece metal, because it's just really not a good idea. And then I do put it on there pretty tight, and then I just take the turkey baster and I poke it down in there, and I get it above the water line. I don't have my turkey baster here. Hold on a second. Let me go grab that. Hold on. Sorry, I guess I wasn't fully prepared for the video today. So this, I'm not going to refill this one. I'm going to show you that one, but I just wanted to show you that every once in a while, see, it cakes up on the inside of the dropper too, and that's really hard to clean out. And so that's another reason why I'm just gotta get a new bottle, because it's just getting harder and harder to clean it. But I just put my thumb on it. Oh. And see, this is really hard, and it's having a hard time coming off. And in some instances, during some parts of the year, it flakes right off very easily. So this is just normal, and it's to be expected. You can see all that salt just coming right out of there, and it makes a mess. So you do want to do that over the trash can. I didn't, because I wanted to show you what I was doing. And I like the glass basters because I can see what I'm doing. But obviously you can get metal basters as well. And this was just a tincture that had an alcohol-based tincture. And again, I can't use that right now because obviously it has not done its little magic thing. And so whenever I do this, I'm real careful, and I don't slosh the jar around or anything, because I do prefer this to be clear. And again, that all of that water is fully saturated, so it doesn't matter. I don't need that sediment that's left over. So when I put it down in there, I'm actually I go like pretty much halfway. I don't know if you can tell where the tip of that is because it's clear, but I go underneath the surface, but I don't go all the way to the bottom. You can see that's really crystal clear coming out of there. And then this is a 2-ounce bottle. Again, I just go under the surface and above the salt water line, or above the salt line, and that pretty much makes it so that I'm not disturbing the salt down there. And that was too much, but that's okay, because now it's okay if I disturb it. So I'll just squeeze that back in there. It's actually a little bit too much. Hopefully it doesn't overflow on me. I just wipe down the bottle. And then when my other bottle, they used to put numbers on the side of the dropper, and this does not have the little scale on it, but I already know that I used 10 drops of this to 8 ounces of water. And if you saw my video about my homemade lemonade concentrate, I already kind of talked about how I balance my electrolytes. Now, I do this because I don't really get very much salt in my diet. Most people get enough salt in their diet so that if they're not sick, you know, vomiting, or, you know, excessive heat when you're sweating a lot and everything, you don't really need to supplement with the salt water drops, because most normal people are getting enough salt. But if you, like this summer, last week, the heat index was, I don't know, 104 or something like that, and last year it was really bad too. And so I sweat a lot, and I'm losing a lot of my electrolytes, and so I just replace them all year round. Because a long time ago I had a doctor, he was actually worried that I was anorexic, and I'm not anorexic and I'm not bulimic, but he was worried that I was, because my electrolytes were so out of balance. And so, you know, once I started balancing them through this method, I'm doing much better. Let's just put it that way. And they're not worried about that anymore. Not that I've seen that doctor again for a long time, but I've done my own testing and everything, and I know that this is definitely what I needed. And so I use 10 drops of the salt water, and then I use 3 drops of this. It's Alkazone's potassium, and this has several different forms of potassium in it. There's potassium lactate, tripotassium phosphate, potassium bicarbonate, and potassium citrate. And bicarbonate and phosphate and chloride, those are all parts of the electrolyte balancing schema. Also calcium and magnesium. And so when I'm doing my water, my drinking water, or even when my coffee, my juice, anything, I do this to everything that I drink pretty much. And except for wine, I don't actually balance it in the wine, but I do 10 drops of this and 3 drops of this. The dose for this is 4 drops in 8 ounces of water, but I found that for me that was too much, because potassium is diuretic. And so I started out at a different ratio, and I found myself going pee all the time, and that's because I wasn't using enough of the salt and I was using too much of the potassium. So once I balanced that out, I figured out for me, because of my diet, that 3 drops of this and 10 drops of this is what works for me. And then magnesium is also really important for your electrolytes, and also calcium. I take magnesium supplement separately. 3 times a day actually I take magnesium, and so I don't do the magnesium in my water when I'm doing this, because I'm already getting it separately throughout the day. And also calcium, I eat plenty of dairy and everything. I don't take a calcium supplement, but that's because I do actually eat quite a bit of dairy, and I don't really feel like I need a calcium supplement. So that's it. And then again, I just start taking water off of there and adding it to here, and it gets to that point, and then I will just add a little bit more water, and I'll just use up all that salt that's in there. And that's how I make electrolyte drinks or whatever, instead of buying Gatorade or anything like that. I just do it myself. Alright guys, I hope that was it. As usual, I'll add notes throughout the video if I missed anything or misspoke or anything like that. Alright, I will talk to you again some other time. Bye.